Welcome back to the Lines College Football Podcast. I'm Brett Gibbons with thelines.com, and today I am joined by Kelley Ford. Kelley, welcome back. We are talking a Saturday slate that I think is actually pretty jam-packed. What do you make of it?
Yeah, it's great, Brett. And again, we're coming off of a week 4 that everybody got excited about, the diehards and the casuals alike. So, hey, the bar's been raised now in this 2023 college football season. Week 5 needs to deliver, and I'm sure it will. It always does. It's going to be a good one.
Yes, before we get into it, don't forget to follow at The Lines US on Twitter or X. I am at Road to CFB, and Kelley's work can be found at K Ford Ratings. We'll be here every single week breaking down the college football slate as well as individual weeknight games. But we're digging into another big-time Saturday slate on this episode here. We are in full swing with conference play, with rivalries, all that good stuff. And I do want to start with a conference rivalry. Right while we're starting here, we have Texas A&M as a 6.5-point favorite versus Arkansas with an over-under of 54 points. This one kicks off at noon Eastern on SEC Network. This is a neutral siter played at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Now, we've expressed our disdain for neutral siter games here. I'm going to be honest, Kelley. I'm going to make a pitch that this one does belong where it's played. I love it at AT&T Stadium. It's a game I've been to. This is the Southwest Classic for the uninitiated. When you get inside a dome stadium like that and you have the Aggie faithful with their yells and you get the Arkansas faithful with their woo pig chants, it gets rowdy. These two teams do not like each other. I think this is one of the more under the radar, but there's a lot of venom in this rivalry here. But there is some big news that just broke, 30 minutes, maybe not even, before we started recording here. And that's that Connor Wegman, he left the game last week with an injury. The team came out and said the x-rays were negative. It wasn't a high ankle sprain. And then boom, hey, he's done for the season. So Connor Wegman done for the season for Texas A&M. I think that's a pretty big downgrade. Max Johnson, the lefty, comes in. He played pretty decent last week, but I think Connor Wegman is much better, and I think we should all be downgrading A&M at least a couple of points here between these two. On the other side, Rocket Sanders, Raheem Sanders, he has not played the last 3 games. He suffered a knee injury, some knee swelling, some more maintenance stuff, but he didn't even play against LSU, so this is a real injury that may keep him out here. But the backfield has been operating just fine, I think, against BYU, LSU, Kent State. They're 19th in EPA per rush. But KJ Jefferson needs to take better care of the football. He has 6 fumbles on the season already, carrying the tote. And he's the primary guy that they want to run with, especially with Rocket Sanders not back there. He's going to be getting a lot of work, and man, he can't afford to be turning the ball over against A&M. Texas A&M will give up long passing plays. The secondary is supposed to be really good, but they're just not. The North Carolina transfer, Tony Grimes, he was expected to be an impact player, like potentially all-conference caliber. He was all-conference at UNC last year, but he's played 0 snaps. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's benched. Nobody has any idea. I can't find any information on that whatsoever one way or another. And then the other guy is Tyreek Chappelle. He's been targeted and torn apart. He's allowed 3 touchdowns already on the season. Josh DeBerry is being targeted more than him, but he's allowing 19.2 yards per reception. This is not a good tandem of cornerbacks here. And the secondary, listen to this. They have missed 10 tackles so far on the season. So they're not even sure tackling. They're allowing receptions and letting guys get past them. And that is a big issue when you're talking about the Dan Eno system that likes a lot of short stuff, that likes to get his playmakers the ball in space and force, the defense to make plays. A&M's defense has not been making those plays, at least in the secondary. But I also don't know if Enos is the offensive coordinator to take advantage of these guys. You look at KJ Jefferson. He's only gotten 8 out of 9.9 yards, a yards per average of 8.4. And they don't really have a downfield threat in this wide receiver room.
Yeah, Brett, I want to back all the way up to the first thing you said. Neutral site game that you support. I'll be fair. I have not been to this game, so I have not been in that stadium. I have not experienced the A&M yells and the woo pigs. Like, I haven't experienced that. Man, the threshold for me, though, to sign off on a neutral site regular season game is pretty darn high. I'll be honest, I like Texas-Oklahoma, the Red River Shootout. I like that one at the Cotton Bowl, or the Texas State Fair. Army-Navy, of course. I don't even like Florida-Georgia at Jacksonville, but I know those fan bases very, very much like that game at a neutral site. So who am I to come in and tell them not to do that? Like, personally, I wish those were on campuses because I think that'd be awesome in the swamp and in Athens. But that aside, This game to me does not crack that threshold. I've never been there. Maybe if some point I get down there, I'll change my mind on that. But I would prefer this game be in Fayetteville, in College Station every other year. So that's that. The other piece that I have to talk about before I even dive into my analysis, hadn't even seen the Weigman news. You said it just broke. Haven't even seen it. So my numbers are not explicitly accounting for that. Of course, the model saw him leave injured last week, but in terms of corrections to and downgrades to the model, that won't be in here as I get ready to break down A&M here. I have Texas A&M minus 8.5. So you're saying maybe drop them a point or two. Well, there's the line 6.5. I have an 8.5. It's a 73% win expectancy. The 3-1 Aggies are number 30 in my most deserving rankings. They're number 18 in my relative scoring margin metric. They're outscoring their opponents by 2.5 points per game more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against their schedule. A&M's power rating's up 2 points from the preseason, and they're ranked number 15 overall in the power ratings with a top 25 offense and a top 15 defense. I know you're sharing concerns about the secondary. Listen, they came into the year projecting as the number 4 defense, so they have not lived up to the expectation the model had. Still a good defense, though, top 15 nationally. That's second best in the SEC West right now by my numbers. At 2-2, 2-game losing streak, Arkansas is spiraling a bit, I would say. To make matters worse, the Razorbacks are in the midst of the toughest 4-game stretch for any team in the entire country all year. They've just come off the game at LSU last week. This is, of course, a neutral site game against A&M this week, at Ole Miss next week, and at Alabama the week after that. Arkansas has only one game in Fayetteville between now, or really you want to back up to the BYU game 2 weeks ago now. They have one game at home in Fayetteville between that BYU game and November 10th. November 11, they welcome in Auburn. Only Mississippi State at home in week 8 is a Fayetteville game in between. I mean, that's a brutal stretch. I've talked about it in the summer. We've talked about it here on this show before. That's tough, and they're right in the midst of it, and it's already trending the wrong way. I have a feeling it might get worse before it gets better for Arkansas, a program that I really like. Sam Pittman, I think, is a great fit, and I really like him as a head coach. I think he's a good, funny, genuine dude, which, like, I like seeing that in a college football head coach. I projected 6.7 regular season wins for Arkansas in the preseason. The Razorbacks are now nearly a game behind schedule already, and their updated projection is 5.6 with just a 53% chance to go bowling. Bottom line, I have A&M minus 8.5. Again, no quarterback injury accounted for here, with a 27% chance Arkansas picks up their first conference win of the season. Brett, what does this do to the projected SEC West standings? Well, right now A&M has a 9% chance to make it to Atlanta. That is third best in the division. With a win, it bumps up to 11%. With a loss, it drops to 2%. So A&M really can't afford to lose this game because of how difficult it is the rest of the way for them in this division. For Arkansas, doesn't really matter. It's less than a 1% chance, win or lose in this one. They could surprise me, but you're already behind the 8 ball with a loss to LSU, and I mentioned that slate they have coming up. It's going to take a lot for Arkansas to make it to Atlanta.
Yeah, I just got another notification coming through about Rocket Sanders. They said latest he's being evaluated after practice reps on Wednesday. So that's kind of where we stand with him. If he goes, it makes a difference. If he doesn't go, it also makes a difference, I think. And just along the line, I keep refreshing the odds table, and it's only moved a half point in favor of Arkansas at DraftKings. So I don't know. Maybe the market doesn't. Maybe it was already baked into the line that Connor Wegman wasn't going to play. I'm not entirely sure.
Go Max Johnson.
Could be that. Yeah, go Max Johnson, right, the lefty. And talking about Arkansas, last week's result with LSU was something. There was one punt between the two teams after the first drive for each team. So, not a lot of stops happening in that game. And Arkansas picked up 80% of their available yards. LSU's defense, man, we need, not now because we're not talking about them, we need to have a conversation about that unit not living up to expectations, especially with the talent that I thought they could be one of the better defenses in the country. They are not playing up to it right now. But staying in the SEC, but flipping divisions, we're going to go at number 22, Florida at Kentucky. Kentucky now just a 1-point home favorite, and this game carries an over-under of 44 points. For those living in Kentucky, I'd like to welcome you to legal sports betting. Congratulations, your state has now launched it this week. That's a big reason why I put this game in here, but I have some feelings about it as well. This one kicks off at noon Eastern on ESPN. So I love the stat. I get to break it out and use it for the first time this year. Unranked teams that are favored over teams ranked between 20 and 25. That sounds like a lot of qualifiers, but think about it. Basically, the bottom of the AP poll, when they're playing unranked teams, the unranked favorites have won 28 of 35 matchups outright since 2010. That is a very high clip. Last year, they went 6-3 outright. Now, this isn't necessarily a trend, a blind trend to follow, but it does tell you about what the AP poll is versus power rating. So don't go into these games and see, ranked Florida, an underdog? Oh, yeah, I'm going to hit. No, there's a reason that they're an underdog against Kentucky in this one. Florida was without 3 starting offensive linemen last week, so you can go back and kind of take that result with a grain of salt. It was a 22-7 win over Charlotte. And Florida I got to give them credit. They are using Graham Mertz in the way that he should be, a game manager. He's not turning the ball over all that much because he's not given a ton of opportunities to turn the ball over all that much, although he's been far from great. They're primarily a run-first team. When they do throw the ball, it goes to Ricky Pearsall for good reason. I mean, you saw his catch on Twitter last week. That's why they're throwing the ball to him. But listen to this, 47.3% target share. Individually, that should be a unit target share, and it's going just to Ricky Pearsall. Almost 50% of the targets go to him. So there's a very clear number one on this team. I know Eugene Wilson has been out. Maybe he'll return this week. I don't know if that really changes the calculus all that much. So Kentucky, they run a lot of zone. This is going into a little bit of schematics, a little bit of, we're getting our elbows dirty here. But on defense, they run a lot of zone coverage, just that Mark Stoops system. But their corners are pretty nasty. Not going to lie here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Florida run Pearsall primarily out of the slot more, which he runs about 50-50 split between wide and in the slot. But I think it's going to be a lot higher in the slot to get him away from those guys. Andrew Phillips, a Wildcat slot corner. He's been pretty solid as their primary slot corner, but Maxwell Hairston, he's the shutdown corner out wide. He's allowing 19.2, I think, is the QBR that he's allowing out on the edge, like the true definition of an island corner out there. Florida's pass rush, we're talking about their defense, pretty nasty. Princely, I usually try to pronounce names on here, not even going to give this one an attempt. But Princely is a 31% pass rush win rate. That is very high. It's one of the highest in the country. He's just beating the tar out of these offensive linemen here. And Devin Leary, much worse when he has less time to throw. It's a scheme thing, right? He wants time to be able to throw more developed routes down the field. And receivers are not catching the ball when he throws it to them quickly. There's 6 of their 7 drops on the season have been on passes delivered within 2.5 seconds. So that's a lot of really deep in the weeds information here, but I think it is actionable information if you're looking at this game. And then the last note that I have here before I hand it over to you, Florida is really solid against the run. They're second nationally in success rate allowed on the ground.
I love your breakdowns, Brad. I know I've said it before. One, I give you a ton of credit for even trying to pronounce names. I don't even try. I just QB1, wide receiver 1, running back 1, whatever. I don't even try. So credit to you. And I love all the facts and stats that you bring, all these little nuances. I'm talking much higher level and general trends of teams, offenses, defense, up, down. You're drilling way down. I learned so much just listening to you talk. I could just skip my part altogether. I won't. I'll give it to the Kentucky fans. They're welcome to the legal sports betting world. I love how you put that in there. Kentucky fans, I've written about you for thelines.com last week. We've talked about you before. Things haven't changed a whole lot for me with how I'm viewing your team or how the model's viewing your team. I have this game as a pick'em. Kentucky is assigned with the greater than 50% win expectancy, 52%. So I think this is an ESPN pick'em game competition. I did take Kentucky in that because that's a straight up winner. You'd think a 4-0 start would exceed expectations for Kentucky football. However, given the schedule, home against Ball State, home against Eastern Kentucky, home against Akron, and on the road at Vanderbilt, the worst team in the SEC, there's an 89% chance that the average top 25 team would be 4-0 against the Wildcats schedule. So good that Kentucky has achieved that 4-0 record, but Kentucky's regular season win total projection has remained largely the same. It's risen from 6.9 to 7.0. So basically they've done what they're expected to have done and what the model thought they would do to this point. The defense is legit. It's ranked number 13 nationally now. The offense has been better than expected. They're number 50. So I do like what I've seen from Kentucky so far, but now we get going with their schedule. For Florida, the win in week 3 against Tennessee has offset the week 1 loss at Utah in the eyes of the model and how they performed in those games. The Gators are currently ranked number 30 in my most deserving rankings, number 29 in my most deserving rankings. Florida's offense has been worse than expected. It slid 10 spots to number 33. While the defense has been much better than expected. Perhaps I had too low of expectations. I had them number 46. They are now up into the top 25. Bottom line, I have this as a pick'em, 48% chance that Florida wins it on the road. Looking at the SEC East race, Georgia is the clear favorite. There's a 77% chance that Georgia represents the East in Atlanta. As things stand, Florida right now is my number 2 favorite. They have an 8% chance. If they win this game, that jumps to 13%. If they lose, it drops to 3%, which would be 5th in the East. So it's very tight down there among these kind of second tier contenders after Georgia. For Kentucky, currently a 3% chance. That's number 5 in the division. If they win, it's up to a 5% chance, which would be number 4. And if they lose, it drops to a 1% chance, which would be 6th. So this is a big game for both of these teams to keep any hope at all of an appearance in the conference championship game alive. Of course, the games against Georgia, which for Kentucky is next week, and for Florida is coming off of a bye in week 9. Those are coming, but you got to take care of business in this one. It should be a really good game.
It's really interesting to see how your offensive and defensive rankings adjust throughout the season and how they increase and decrease. Because what I had expected for Kentucky was much better offensively than what they're actually putting out. But your numbers were a little bit more bearish, and rightfully so. And the fact that it says that they've been better than expected up to number 50 kind of tells it that your model had the offense kind of nailed there. Whereas my projection was just, I was a little bit too bullish on the Wildcats, I think, preseason here. I know I dropped that trend earlier, but I think I lean Florida on the road here. If it's under +3, I'd bet them out. I know. I have to put it in there.
You're going against it.
Yeah, I am. I am for this one. I know. It's at a pick 'em right now, so you can afford to be patient because 0's a true dead number. You cannot end in 0 in college football. So I'm patient. If it's under 3, I'm probably taking the Gators outright. If it's more than 3, I'll probably I don't think it's going to rebound to that, but I'd probably take the points there. Low scoring, it's going to be a low scoring game. I don't think either team has great weapons, but I think I like ETN a bit more than I like Ray Davis on the other side. And I think I have better data points with Florida. Like I'm a lot more confident in what they are versus what Kentucky is. Because I know you said that their schedule's been soft, but Kelly, we can't overlook the Akron Zips. They've been giving Power 5 team fits all year. And I'm only being half facetious about that.
Goodness, IU Hoosiers.
Yeah,
Goodness, IU Hoosiers.
Not great. But if we're looking at line movement here, Florida and the under took some movement as of Wednesday here. That's just the way I lean. I don't have an official play in this game. But moving forward, we have, oh boy, the ranked Kansas Jayhawks, baby. We got number 24 Kansas on the road at number 3 Texas. Texas a 16.5-point favorite and declining. That number is actually down from open. This game carries a very fun over-under of 63 points. We're talking about a true old-fashioned Big 12 shootout happening in Austin. This game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. I love that Kansas is in the national spotlight 2 years in a row. I really do. This isn't exactly actionable for this game, but it's another interesting trend that's been happening this year. Teams ranked in the AP Top 5 are 4, 13, and 2 against the spread. That's about a 24% cover rate. So they're winning. They're 17-2 outright. Got to give credit to Ben Fox for that one. But they're not covering large spreads. And I do think that actually has a lot to do with the clock rules. That they're simply running the ball down overmatched teams' throats. And because they don't get that stoppage on first down, Texas doesn't have the time to score 48 points on Wyoming. So, but talking about these teams, Kansas, they have done just enough to beat the teams on their schedule. No more, no less. I talked about that game being weird in Nevada. Guess what? They didn't even come close to covering that spread. The underlying defensive numbers, they're not that bad, but they've played Missouri State, who's an FCS team. They played Illinois, who's a mess on offense, and Nevada, who may be one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the FBS, plus BYU, who is a team with a pulse. Obviously, this is a big step up to Texas, though. They've not played a team remotely close to what they're going to see from the Longhorns here. Their secondary has actually played really well, but again, not against very stiff competition here. Kobe Bryant, that's Cobee Bryant, is an all-league caliber player, but they only have one of him. They don't have multiple, and Texas has infinity talented receivers between Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell and Jordan Whittington and all those guys, Isaiah Nair. But let's talk about this Texas offense. They kind of sleptwalked through the first halves of Rice and Wyoming, put the foot down in the second half to win the game soundly. I don't think that's an issue with their offense because I've seen them get up for Baylor and Alabama. So I think it just simply is we don't need to show much. We don't need to do much against these lesser teams. Let's just get the win and move on. And they pretty much just sat on Baylor. They only had 4 explosive plays, but a 51% success rate. So they moved the ball with consistency. They didn't need the big plays to beat Baylor, who was just, oh boy, Dave Aranda. That is a quick fall from grace. They do have a potential look-ahead spot to the Red River rivalry here, but Kansas has beaten them in the not-so-distant past. So I'm not sure that that's something that the Longhorns are going to say, yeah, let's just ignore Kansas. We can roll right over them. And then on the other side, the offensive line has been really impressive for Kansas. Illinois' defensive front is really no joke. They've been tested, but still not Texas's. We're still talking about a big step up in tier here. They have some issues at left guard of all the places, but about 80% of that line I think is really solid. Can Kansas's receivers get separation from Texas's defensive backs? I don't know. The Longhorns are 19th in PFF's coverage grade so far in the season. I think they did a nice job with Alabama, who did get some opportunities, but for the most part, the DB stuck to them like glue. So can they create that separation? Can Kansas create that separation? I don't know. I really don't.
Yep. Brett, Texas is back. That's the headline here, right? It's the headline every year.
Watch them lose 3 in a row.
But I'm serious, though. Texas is back. I've seen enough in both the predictive model. Texas ranks 6th, and the most deserving rankings. Texas ranks number 1. My numbers have Texas minus 21.5. It's a 94% win expectancy. The Longhorns' overall rank and offensive unit rank remain unchanged from the preseason, but the defense has been better than expected. They've risen from number 16 to number 4. It's not a top 5 defense for me. And say what you want. Yeah, Baylor, my biggest downgrade of any team from preseason to now. They're down 10.8 points. That's no one has dropped more in the power ratings for me than Baylor. So take that with a grain of salt. But that game against Alabama still holding weight. A Wyoming team that has a good win against Texas Tech. So it's not like they haven't played anybody. They ain't played nobody, Paul. They have played some teams, and it's going to get harder as we move forward here. The Red River Shootout is looming, as you mentioned. But with only the Red River Shootout next week, projecting as a closer than a 9-point spread for me. Right now, Texas is a favorite in every game by at least 9 points, except for Red River. Texas's regular season win total projection has skyrocketed. It's up to 10.6. That's up from what was a very respectable 9.4 in the preseason. But Texas is looking good. And speaking of looking good, this is 2 years in a row that Kansas is off to a red-hot start. The Jayhawks are number 24 in my most deserving rankings. Not every day that the AP poll and my most deserving are spot on. They are in this case. The number 19 record achievement, and the Jayhawks are my number 15 overachievers to this point in the season with regard to win-loss record relative to expected. Both units have been better than I projected. The offense has jumped from number 28 in the preseason to number 19, and the defense is up. I did not have high expectations for this defense. I had them sub 100 coming into the year. They're still not great, but they're number 85. That's good improvement through four games. So as evidenced by those unit rankings I just rattled off, the offense is really good for Kansas. It's number 4 in the Big 12. The defense, like I said, while it's improved, still has work to do. It's currently ranked number 12 in the Big 12, which has 14 teams for now. Kansas has beaten Texas in recent years, as you said. But this year's Longhorns team is the best version of the Texas team that we've seen in a while. And this will be the Jayhawks' biggest test of the season on both sides of the ball by far, as you mentioned, Brett. Bottom line, Texas minus 21.5, 6% chance that Kansas improves to 5-0 on the year. I know it's a 6% chance, but just saying Kansas could be 5-0. That's awesome. I love it as well. Jayhawks fans have accused me of not liking their team. Guys, I'm just telling you what the numbers say, but this is 2 years in a row. You've done great. Keep it up, and the model will eventually catch up if you continue to have this high level of success. All else equal, Brett, what does this game do to the projected conference championship standings? It is Oklahoma and Texas right now that have clear separation at the top. Texas has a 67% chance to make it to Arlington. That's number 2 in the conference. With a win, it goes up to 68%, so really not a whole lot to gain here for Texas. That's what happens when you're a 21.5 points favorite. Like, the model's expecting you to get this win. You're not going to get rewarded in this regard for that. With a loss, though, they drop to a 41% chance to make it, which would be 3rd best in the conference. So a lot to lose for Texas in this game with regard to the conference championship race. Not a lot to gain. Kansas, on the other hand, is kind of on the flip side. Less than a 1% chance currently. If they win, it goes up to a 4% chance. So it's not nothing, but it's still pretty far down there again because their power rating right now is 9th in the Big 12. If they lose, it remains less than 1%. So Texas, you've dropped this game in the past. If you are serious, and if Texas is back, if you want to be taken seriously on the national stage, I know you beat Alabama. All of that will be undone if you lose to Kansas at home this week. All the goodwill, all the hype, is gone if you lose to Kansas. Right or wrong, that's gonna be what happens. So you better take care of business, and you better not be looking ahead to Oklahoma, because I know the college football public probably is. You can't afford to.
I'd like to introduce the 2023 Kansas Jayhawks to the 2022 Kansas Jayhawks, Kelly. They're 5-0. Yeah, I'll absorb some of the flack that you're getting from Kansas fans. Yeah, they're 5-0. Well, great. Don't apologize for being 5-0 and beating the teams you should. Or I'm sorry, 4-0 and beating teams you should. I'm jumping ahead to give them a win at Texas. But from this point on, they have at Texas, UCF, who's very good and should be getting John Rice Plumlee back. They have Oklahoma. They have Kansas State, and they're at Cincinnati. And I'm not going to chalk up a game at Iowa State as a win. I don't know, man. I have an under 6. Go ahead.
No, you get it. What are you saying? You have an under 6?
Like under 6.5 win total ticket, and I should be nervous about it at 4-0, but I'm just not.
My numbers have a 56% chance to reach 7+. So right now you have a 44% chance
not great.
to get. To get, I mean, well, hey, but what you just said, my numbers after, like, moving forward, my numbers favor Kansas in one game at Oklahoma State, 2.5 points. Now, there's a lot of close spreads. UCF is a 4-point game. Iowa State, a 1 point. Texas Tech, 1 point. Cincinnati, 3.5. So a lot of those games are toss-up. If Kansas just wins half of them, half of the toss-ups, they'll be fine, and you will lose. If they don't, you will win. Again, you're a 2.5-point favorite against Oklahoma State. You could lose that game. So, yes, Kansas fans, very happy with where you are. I'll give it quickly. Coming into the year, I gave a 44% chance to go bowling. It is now up to an 84% chance to go bowling. Your chances to go over that 6.5, 21% in the preseason, so I would have felt very good about it. Now it's 56%, so I don't feel as good, but it's certainly still a possibility that cashes.
Yeah, bottom line for me in this game is that Kansas really hasn't played an offense with any explosive potential yet, and Texas just brings a lot of it. That's, if we're looking for a real boiled down way to look at this game, overly simplified, whatever you want to call it. But, I need to know if we're going to get an inspired performance from Texas, or are they going to do what they've been doing to the last couple overmatched opponents where they kind of take it easy in the first half and say, oh, shoot, we need to win the second half to make, clean up the mess, I suppose. And if they're not looking ahead to Oklahoma. But if you're looking to back Kansas, I'd probably take a first half spread rather than that full game, because Texas just puts the foot on the gas in the second half. I would feel pretty good about taking a first half ticket on Kansas in this game, if we're being honest here. That probably is my only play. All right, we're moving on to the Sun Belt. Kelly, I'm going to tell you what. We got 2 Sun Belt games in a row for the people here. We have Coastal Carolina on the road at Georgia Southern. The Eagles are 6.5-point home favorites, and this game carries an over-under of 64 points. They're expecting a good old-fashioned shootout here as well. This game kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. They've been, I think they've had one almost every week, which has just been great. So this is your NFL Network game of the week. Jalen White, the running back for Georgia Southern, missed last week with an ankle injury. He's a dynamic player. He forced 10 missed tackles, against UAB alone. He's shifty. He's really good. I'm not sure if he's going to be back or not. That's definitely worth keeping an eye on. If you're looking at Coastal, they have a slight rest advantage after playing on Thursday at home last week. Georgia Southern played on Saturday on the road. And the Chanticleers, Tim Beck, I've been mean to him, but I'm going to continue to be. Just an absolute clinic in coaching malpractice last week. That was a very winnable game that Beck sunk this team. I was thrilled because I had a Georgia State ticket. It was awesome watching, all those gaffes and just inconsistency. I don't have enough time on this podcast to dive too far into that. But now they go up against a Georgia Southern team that has a really good defense. I think a better defense than we saw with Georgia State. They held Wisconsin to 7 first-half points, and even at one point, according to ESPN at least, hit a 55% win expectancy in that game when they went up 14-7. Then they gave up, a short field on interception, turned it over twice to Wisconsin, including at the 11. So that final score, that 35-14 final score, is a bit misleading. Georgia Southern was very live in that game. Then they come out and just beat the tar out of Ball State 40-3 last week. You know what? I'm just going to put my play right out here. I'm fading Coastal again. I bet Georgia Southern in this game. Anything under 7, I think is absolutely play for me. The Eagles are number 1 in rushing success rate. I don't know if that's so much a product of who they've played a little bit here, but Coastal Carolina cannot defend the rush. They're 106th in EPA per rush allowed on the season. And then a quarterback, Davis Brin, he's been really good. He was from Tulsa. He's a transfer in. Didn't play a lot last year, but he's been phenomenal this year. He threw for 344 yards and 4 touchdowns in a dominant win over Ball State, like I had mentioned. When you look at his numbers, though, for season long, just keep in mind, I'm going to say this quietly, threw 5 interceptions against Wisconsin, but there's only been 2 in the other games that they have not been completely outmatched in. And Coastal, they give up plenty of work through the air, too. Defense is just atrocious, and the offense isn't good enough to keep up with that. In the past years, I think Coastal could get away with that kind of porous defense thanks to their innovative offense, but Underback, that's completely out the window. They're predictable, no creativity, seemingly random go-for decisions. Sometimes they punt it in plus territory. Sometimes it's kind of like watching Brandon Staley in the NFL. You have no idea what he's going to do, and it's almost never the right decision. And he's just completely nerfed Grayson McCall. So, yeah, I'm going to be brutal about the chance clears, but that's how I see them right now. They're a team that I will absolutely fade as long as you're giving me these short lines.
I have Georgia Southern minus 2.5.
No.
It's a 50. Yeah, I know. It's a 57% win expectancy. As you were going, I was like, Brett's not going to like this.
Well, we did this last week too, though.
We did. You're right. We did. 57% win expectancy. Coming off their 40-3 win at Ball State, as you mentioned, no team was upgraded more in my power ratings than Georgia Southern. They improved 5 points this week. On the season, the Eagles are up 6.5 points and more than 30 spots in the rankings. Both units have been better than expected. The offense is now top 40, and the defense is cracking the top 100. That's good for a defense that I projected coming in number 128. So they're not a good defense, but it's much better than I was projecting, which is what's given this team the opportunity to rise in the power ratings. By my numbers, this is the best team in the Sun Belt East, and they have the second best chance to win the division behind only App State. While Georgia Southern finds themselves at the top of my weekly upgrade list, Coastal Carolina, Brett, you will like this, is in the top 10 of my weekly downgrades list, following that shock double-digit loss at home to Georgia State last week. I say shock, you say maybe not. The numbers did not expect it, and they also didn't expect them to lose by 2 scores. So Coastal's offense has been slightly worse than I projected. You say nerf Grayson McCall. Like, yeah, I get it. They've fallen from the mid-40s to now the mid-50s. The defense has picked up the slack, though, and by my numbers, they've improved 30 spots since the preseason. They now rank in the mid-60s. Again, I had this defense around 100 coming into the year, so not a high bar to clear, but they have been better on that side of the ball, even though the offense has been a bit more deficient than we've seen in years past. The Chants are the second best team in the East by my numbers currently. However, they're 0-1 in conference play now, and they have a relatively difficult conference slate in front of them, so my numbers give them just the 5th best chances to win the division. So these are the 2 best teams in the division. Neither one of them has the best chance to win the division for some of those reasons that I've just outlined. But bottom line, I have Georgia Southern minus 2.5, 43% chance that Coastal Carolina gets the upset win on the road and propels them into their off week on a high note. I talked about this division race. It is so tight in in the Sun Belt. It's beyond ridiculous, and it's really in both divisions, but the East in particular, the one we're talking about here, App State's my favorite, and I'm using that in air quotes, to win the division with a 26% chance. Like a 1 in 4 chance. That's the best chance anyone has. It is so tight between App State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Marshall. Throw Coastal in there. It doesn't help that James Madison, who is a really good team in their own right and belongs in this conversation, is not eligible for the conference championship game. So that's why you're seeing this spread out. But if you put James Madison in there, it'd be even more. So anyway, with a win here, Georgia Southern actually jumps up above App State for the time being with a 32% chance to make it. A loss, though, drops them all the way down to 11%. That's 5th best. For Coastal Carolina, I said right now they're 5th with 12% chance. A win puts them right back in the mix, and they'd be up to a 22% chance, which would be 2nd best. A loss, now you're 0-2. And while you are presumably one of the better teams in the power ratings, depending on how you lose this game, maybe you're not anymore, you'd only have a 4% chance because you're really behind the 8 ball now. So Coastal can't afford another loss here. Georgia Southern could use it to really propel them forward. Both these teams have to go on the road to App State, the team that I'm currently projecting as the favorite, but not the best team. So this whole race is just so interwoven. I'm very excited for it, and this game at the end of the year could prove to be pivotal for either one of these teams and their chances to make and or host the conference championship game.
Staying in the Sun Belt, but going from the East to the West, we now have Texas State, a 5.5-point road favorite at Southern Miss. How about that, where they projected to be in the preseason here? This game has an over-under of 62.5 points, and it kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Southern Miss, they lose their starting corner, Brendan Tolles. He's out for the season. He wasn't playing very well, but he's still a starter, so Southern Miss believed that's the best that they could put out there at corner at that position. On the other side, I absolutely love what G.J. Kinney's done so far. I don't think it's a fluke by any stretch. They're inside the top 90 in my aggregated power ratings near Western Kentucky. Again, tell me that preseason. I wouldn't have believed you for a second, although I would have been excited because I am a little partial to the Texas State Bobcats, my former employer. Texas State, though, their front seven, pretty darn good. They have this guy, Ben Bell. I think I brought him up on the podcast before, but he's a dominator on the defensive line. He actually leads the entire country in pass rush win rate, nearly 40%. This is a guy that almost on half his snaps is beating the guy across from him, which is just outstanding. As a team, they're 19th in EPA per rush allowed and top 50 in sack rate. Again, they carried that pretty decent defense over from last year, but they had a lot of turnover, and with the new offense, kind of expected it to take a step back or maybe not be as good as it was last year, but that's just not been the case. They've actually, in my opinion, better. What is Southern Miss's entire offense game plan? Frank Gore Jr. That's it. That's the engine of their offense. He was banged up last week, but he still toted the rock 20 times for 132 yards. It's a very Frank Gore Jr. line. I don't think Southern Miss has a quarterback on their roster capable of even completing a forward pass. I also want to know, dude, what happened last week? What are we doing, guys? You lost to Arkansas State. You lost 44 points to Arkansas State. Were they last in your power ratings? They're last in a lot of power ratings.
Yeah, they were. They are no longer, but that was about as brutal as it gets for just an unexpected loss and like a gut punch to how good are we?
Yeah, and they got pushed around by Arkansas State's offensive line. Like really pushed, like 2+ line yards a carry pushed around. Not great. I think losing defensive coordinator Austin Armstrong to Florida was just a massive blow because they can't really rely on the defense anymore. That used to be their MO. Their offense could be as bad and inefficient as it is, but their defense was always going to be a saving grace. Not so this year. I think they're just overall a bad football team now.
Yeah, I have Texas State minus 4.5 to 63% win expectancy. You'll love this, Brett. The Bobcats' power rating has improved 8.1 points since the preseason. That's 5th most nationally and best among G5 teams. The defense has actually been slightly worse than I projected, now ranks in the mid-80s. But the offense has been so much better than preseason expectations that it hasn't mattered. I projected the offense to be second worst in the nation. It's now playing like the number 77 unit. That's an improvement of 55 spots. It's significant. Goodness. It's dramatic. And again, like Colorado and like USC last year, Texas State is a team that we did talk about in the preseason of, hey, there's so much new. And when there's that much new, it's hard to project accurately what they're going to look like. I understand that. We know this. And the model missed because of all that new, and it's gelled much better than the model had anticipated. So learning, we incorporate it, and we move forward. But yes, Texas State has been much better than we expected, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Texas State's 3 wins are 1.7 more than I projected at this point in the season. That makes the Bobcats my number 3 biggest overachievers to date. They should have the advantage on both sides of the ball in this one. And for as good as Texas State has been this season, Southern Miss has been that bad. The Golden Eagles are down 6.4 points in the power ratings compared to the preseason. That's 7th worst nationally. The offense is down 10 spots. They're now sub 100. The defense is down 25 spots. They're now number 114. There's no spinning it. It's been a disappointing start to the season for Southern Miss, especially, as we just talked about, the loss at Arkansas State last week. Really no words. Like, that's just, yep, we just did that, and yikes is all you can say. My numbers currently favor the Golden Eagles in only 2 games left this season. As a result, their chances to go bowling have fallen from 52% in the preseason to just 5% currently. When I was making my notes for this episode and this game came up, that right there, that 1 point, as I looked at what are their preseason to current bowl projections, 52 to 5. I now want to compile a list and put it out there of who has seen the biggest movement, both in the positive and negative directions. I would be surprised if a team has gone more negative than Southern Miss, but I will follow up on that and post that out there. So to recap, I have got Texas State minus 4.5. It's a 37% that Southern Miss surprises us and gets it done here. All else equal, what does this do to the conference standings? Texas State, currently the 3rd best chance to make it to the Sun Belt Championship game at 18%. With a win, that jumps to 23%. With a loss, it's down to 8%. Southern Miss, you're at a 1% chance right now. If you win, you're at 3%. If you lose, you're 0-2 in the conference, and it drops to less than 1%.
Now, I'm a little confounded by this, and usually when I use those words, it's because I don't understand. In the line moved off of Southern Miss +7 to now +5.5, and that's not insignificant because it came off that key figure of 7. If this were to have happened like right away. Like it dropped, and then in the hours afterwards, Southern Miss may have taken some money. I said, okay, maybe, those that are betting, maybe their models haven't really caught up to Texas State. Because I personally, in this game, lean Texas State, but it happened on Wednesday. And that to me means that there is an influential betting group out there that did their homework, that has their numbers, and knows what these teams are, that still said 7 points is too darn many for Southern Miss at home. And that spooks me a little bit, so I won't be making a play on the spread here. Last time I said I was confused by the line movement, that was that Navy-Memphis game. That was just disgusting to watch, and a lost bet overall. But the side that I do like here, I like under 62.5. It was 60.5. It moved up Tuesday a little bit, but I don't think Southern Miss's offense is good enough to score against a quality defense. And Texas State, I believe, is a quality defense. There's no pace concerns from Southern Miss. They're 80th in seconds per play, so they're not going to be running 100 miles an hour. And 62, boy, that's a lot of points, man. It's a lot of points for two teams that we've seen Texas State score 13 in the game. So it's not like they're barn burners, 40-point shootouts. They can rely on their defense to win games. And I don't think Southern Miss is nearly talented enough to be able to put up their bargain. This line almost feels like they looked just isolated at the Arkansas State game and said, yeah, about that.
Well, Brett, I won't argue with that's a lot of points, but come on, man. You know what happened. The Vegas put out their line. I dropped the K Ford projected line Tuesday morning, and the market adjusted. Come on, we know how this works. I'm kidding.
Maybe. I mean, they do factor these power ratings into account when you consider. I mean, like SP Plus, you can't just use the SP Plus or FPI to bet anymore.
Totally.
Market folds it in. So.
Yep.
All right, College Game Day's game of the week. We have number 11 Notre Dame back-to-back with College Game Day. 5.5-point favorite on the road at number 17 Duke. This game has an over-under of 52 points. Kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Now, this is College Game Day's first ever visit to Duke. It's always exciting when you hear that. Now there's only 6 Power 5 teams left, that being Cal, Illinois, Rutgers, Syracuse, and Virginia. I think the ship has sailed on a couple of those for them to go visit, namely Illinois and Virginia. But hey, Notre Dame, they're coming off that tough loss to Ohio State that kept me up for about, I don't know, I still haven't slept since that game. You can either see it as a body blow theory or a get right theory. They came and they took their lumps with Ohio State and they're ready to get back on the winning track, or they took a beating against Ohio State in just a game of attrition. And they may be beat up coming into this one. I can't imagine, though, that they're going to be down for a College Game Day game. The atmosphere in Duke is just going to be too much. I can guarantee the Blue Devils are going to be up for this one. Mike Elko is going to have his guys ready to go, especially once they watched what happened against Ohio State last week. The Irish were completely stuffed offensively, aside from underneath throws against Ohio State, and they get a little reprieve versus Duke, but honestly not that much. Duke still fields a pretty good defense. They allow efficiency, but they don't allow explosiveness. They've allowed 6 20-plus yard plays. That's the second fewest nationally, behind only Iowa, but they are allowing a 45% rushing success rate, which is 115th. So they're going to let you have your yards, but they're absolutely going to cap your scoring potential. The blueprint's there. Does Duke have enough talent up front to replicate it? I don't know. And that blueprint being you clog the inside gaps, you force Esime to spill outside, and then let your linebacking core come down and clean up. Ohio State has the dudes at linebacker to be able to do that. And Audric Esime kills people with his explosive runs in between the tackles. So if you take away those rushing lanes for him, force him to dance around outside, you kind of take down what he does best. Notre Dame, they absolutely take what the opponent gives them, so they will take those short throws. Sam Hartman's not going to get greedy and aggressive. He's just going to take what you give him, and they're going to do the same thing on the ground. Duke is actually the number 1 coverage team in the country right now, according to PFF's grades, for whatever that's worth. Granted, they play Clemson, who in my estimation has really bad wide receivers, Lafayette, and I don't mean Louisiana Lafayette, I mean the FCS Lafayette, Northwestern and UConn. But Notre Dame, they have decent receivers, but they're not like, blow your doors off. So I think it's still a good matchup for Duke there. They've also allowed a 44% scoring rate in the red zone. That was certainly helped out by Clemson handing the ball back every time they got there that game, but it's still a stout defense.
Yeah, Brett, this is an exciting game. Game day game. It's among my top 2 in the watchability scores. So I have Notre Dame minus 5.5. It's a 65% win expectancy. Despite the loss to Ohio State, Notre Dame's power rating improved compared to last week. Again, when wins and losses aren't inputs into the power rating. If you are If you over exceed the expectation that the model had for you with regard to your performance in a game, you can move up even in a loss. If you underachieve the model's expectations, like Ohio State did, you can move down in the power rating world even with a win. Most deserving rankings? Absolutely not. Ohio State got a big jump this week because they won the game. Notre Dame took a step back, not a big one because most teams would be expected to lose to Ohio State even at home. So they took a step back, now falling to number 20 in the most deserving rankings. But power rating wise, the model liked what it saw from Notre Dame and it moved them up. The Irish's power rating is up nearly 4 points since the preseason. Their regular season win total projection has improved as well from 8.7 to 9.3. The defense is number 12. That's really good. But it's the Sam Hartman-led offense that has been much better than expected. They've risen from number 27 in the preseason to now number 10 currently. Notre Dame is favored in each of its remaining games. That includes games against USC, at Clemson, games at the beginning of the year that we really had question marks about. Those are still close spreads, but Notre Dame is currently favored in each of those. 12% chance that the Irish win out by my numbers. It's been a great season for Duke so far. This is 2 years in a row. Talked about Kansas earlier. How about Duke, too? These college basketball blue bloods announcing themselves on the college football stage. I can get behind that. I'm good with that. Let's see how this goes. Can we make these schools, football schools, Probably not. But it's good when they can have some success in football as well. The Blue Devils are number 8 in my most deserving rankings. I know the AP has them at number 17. I think they have a resume that is deserving of being ranked number 8. By no means are they the 8th best team, but from a resume standpoint, that's where they are. They're the number 12 biggest overachievers for me right now. Their power rating has improved 8.4 points since the preseason. Only Oklahoma and Washington have improved more, so this Duke team is far better than I expected in the preseason. Their regular season win total projection has improved from 5.9 to 8.8. There's a 60% chance that Duke wins 9 plus regular season games. I can't overstate just how impressive this is for a Duke program that really until last year, they had some success there under Cutcliffe and were, in the rankings and that stuff, but they are, performing at a very high level now on a consistent basis, something we haven't seen from Duke in a very long time. The offense and defense are both top 25. Duke's overall power rating is up from number 50 in the preseason to number 24 currently. Bottom line, I have Notre Dame minus 5.5. It's a 35% chance that Duke wins at home and moves to 5-0 on the year. Brett, if we have Kansas and Duke at 5-0, I'll just take one of them. If we have one of them at 5-0, what a story that would be for college football.
Yeah, and I'm pretty happy with my 50-1 preseason long shot ticket on Duke to win the ACC, especially since Clemson isn't living up to expectations. I mean, they still have to go through Florida State. They still have to go through Miami. North Carolina hasn't let me down yet, and they play Florida State and North Carolina and Louisville. So they've got a uphill road to climb, but 50-1, man.
50-1, your implied odds are going to be much lower than what I'm about to give you. A 19% chance right now to make the conference championship game. Of course, once you're there, you got to win it. But a 19% chance to make it, a 1 in 5 chance, that's much better than your 50-1.
Yeah, a smidge. So you said that your number here is Notre Dame minus 5.5. That's exactly what the market has it at. And I never know if being exactly on market is a good or bad thing, because on one hand, your power ratings between these two teams are what odds makers agree with. So that means that they're pretty sharp. On the other hand, there's no edge to be had, so it's kind of like, I don't know if I really want to be super on market or close enough to on market. Since this number is dead either way, you still have 4 to go through, and 6 is a semi, it's not 7. I think you can wait on this one. Consider what direction, though, you think that this line is going to move to dictate where you bet. I'm hands off it right now. I think Notre Dame is a better team, but coming off such a physical and emotional game at Ohio State, to go into Durham with the first ever game day in town, that's going to be, I think, a lopsided motivation deal between these two teams. And that's not enough for me to think that I have an edge and go in and bet this. Tough stretch for Notre Dame, though. How about this? Ohio State, then they play at this game, and then at Louisville and USC, back to back. So the Irish are going to be one tired team by the time that they get finished with Caleb Williams and crew. Moving forward to the Big 12, we have West Virginia on the road at TCU. TCU is a 12-point now home favorite, and this game carries an over-under of 52 points. This one opened laughably low at like 9 points because I'll get into it. But it kicks off at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. There's actually some pretty bad blood between these teams. West Virginia came into Fort Worth last time in 2021, kicked the absolute tar out of them, especially up front. I was at that game. That was a disappointing game to watch, and that ended up being the last home game for Gary Patterson. They fired him after they got blown out by Oklahoma State on the road the following week. West Virginia now, I'm going to be honest, they're not a total pushover like I thought they were going to be coming into this season. Now, they've been a little bit fortunate. I'm not going to... Now, I will. I'm going to say they're a little fraudulent, I think. They got fortunate with Pitt just being god-awful and Texas Tech losing their starting quarterback after one quarter. I'm just going to put it out there. Baron Martin, he's not fully healthy either, and he didn't play very well. But I can't help but to think that if Tech had, Shuck for the whole game, I don't know how that game would have gone. So bad news, though, for West Virginia fans. That means you get to keep Neil Brown even longer than you expected. And I know y'all were already fed up with him last year. I predicted before the season that this game may have been it going into the bye for him, but that is definitely not the case now. So enjoy that, Mountaineer fans. Garrett Green, the starting quarterback, did not play last week. Nico Marchiol was the replacement. Terrible through the air. 3.7 yards per attempt. He threw 2 picks, but he did add 72 on the ground. So, he's a dual threat, much better with his legs than he is with his arms. And to be honest here, CJ Donaldson, he is the offense. If he doesn't get going, neither do they. 67% rush rate. That's the second highest among non-service academies in the country so far this year. So, what West Virginia is going to do. They're not going to try to hide it, and it's not exactly turning into points. TCU is pretty stout against the run. Their linebackers are particularly good with Johnny Hodges leading the way that way. But teams can't pass much on them because they run, teams have to pass on them because they run such a fast pace. They can't afford not to pass it. TCU right now is kind of forcing teams into track meets, and that's not West Virginia's game. They're going to want to slow this down, muck it up, put the ball on the ground, and really run it down your throat. But TCU runs so quickly that they can't afford that. On the other side, though, strength versus strength. West Virginia's defense is 17th in EPA per rush allowed so far this year, and Imani Bailey for TCU is one of the better running backs on the season. Dude, he's forced 31 missed tackles. That is the third most, and Audric Estime's up there, but he's got a game on him. 31 missed tackles forced through 4 games so far. He's rushing for 6 a carry. He's also accumulated at least 120 rushing yards in every game against FBS competition, aka when he's actually needed.
Brett, I got to start with West Virginia here. I always start with the team that I have projected to win the game, so that's misleading. I don't have West Virginia. I have to make a comment, though, about West Virginia. This fan base has certainly let me hear it over the last probably 18 months. Yeah, like it started, really off-season summer 2022 when they had very high expectations and JT Daniels was going to be their quarterback and they were going to finally get it all put together. My number said, not so fast. I don't think they're going to be that great. Regular season win total projections not really up there with where they expect. It was in line with Vegas, but not in line with where West Virginia fans expected. So they really got on me. Then this past summer, just as a fun subjective thing, hey, let's tier the Power 5 jobs. West Virginia fans weren't happy with where I put their program. They let me hear it again. Like, West Virginia fans have been all over me, and they don't like me, and okay, I'm sorry that my model isn't putting out what you want, and I'm sorry that my view of your program moving forward within the confines of the new look Big 12 isn't as rosy as you think. Okay, so this week, my most deserving rankings come out on Monday, and they're number 21. They're not ranked in the AP. They're not even receiving votes, I don't think. I have them number 21. They're the 18th best record achievement. They're number 38 in relative scoring margin. They've got a good resume at this point. West Virginia fans, I'm waiting. I'm excited. I'm like, here we go. They're going to catch on. They're going to post this. They're going to love it. Finally, somebody posts something that's like number 21 with like the emoji of like, questioning or like concern. And I was like, I quote tweeted and said, finally, a West Virginia fan has at least commented. I really thought it'd be positive here. That got some traction. And they were like, yeah, I don't think we deserve to be 21. Like, I don't think that's right. Like, we're not deserving. I'm like, all right, guys, I can't win with you. First, you hate me because I say you're not good enough. Now I have you resume ranked 21 and you're saying we don't deserve it. So West Virginia fans, if you're listening, you're probably not because you don't like me. But if you're listening, I don't know what to do about our relationship at this point. Please help me. I would like to bring us back to the table. I'm just not sure it's in the cards. All right, Brett, into the game. I have TCU -9. It's a 74% win expectancy, so West Virginia fans won't like hearing that. Following a really disappointing loss to Colorado to start the year, TCU's power rating immediately dropped more than 4 points. Since that time, though, the Horned Frogs have run off 3 straight wins by an average score of 37-12. Their power rating is right back where it started. The offense is number 24. That's 5th best in the conference, while the defense is number 44. That's 9th best in the conference. Like TCU, West Virginia opened the year with a loss and has since reeled off 3 straight wins. Their resume more impressive given the schedule that they've played and the opponents they've faced than TCU's, with wins over Pitt and Texas Tech. That's how the Mountaineers find themselves number 21 in my most deserving rankings, which apparently their fans think they don't deserve. Don't know what to tell you. The offense has been worse than expected. They've fallen from number 40 to number 69, but the defense has more than made up that ground. They've improved from number 82 to number 40. Overall, West Virginia is up 2.5 points in the power ratings and 11 spots in the rankings that go with those. The Mountaineers entered the season with a 31% chance to go bowling. That's now all the way up to an 85% chance. So a year ago, the criticism was, Kelly, you're wrong about our team. Well, I wasn't. Now, you could say, hey, Kelly, you were a little bit wrong about our team, but they're not saying that. Maybe it's because they've all blocked me at this point. I don't know. This is projecting to be the second most difficult remaining game for West Virginia. By my numbers, TCU has the advantage on both sides of the ball and the home field advantage. Bottom line, TCU -9, 26% chance, 1 in 4 chance. West Virginia moves to 2-0 in Big 12 play. Texas and Oklahoma have separated themselves at the top of this conference standings, as I talked about earlier. TCU currently with an 8% chance. That's 4th best. With a win, it jumps to 10% to make it to Arlington. With a loss, down to 2. West Virginia, currently a 3% chance to make it to the Big 12 championship game. A win would jump it up to 9. A loss would drop it down to a 1% chance.
You mentioned that the rest of their schedule isn't so bad, and to be honest, revisiting it, yeah. At Houston, Oklahoma State at home, and the Pokes are just an absolute dumpster fire. Baylor, same story, absolute dumpster. I'm going to file West Virginia away. I have a doc where I have my file away notes for bowl season. This team is going to play a good G5 team, and I'm going to bet that G5 team at a number. I am serious about this team being fraudulent. I really am. Offense.
Will Neil, if they make a bowl, will Neil Brown keep his job? Yeah, right.
Oh God, I hope so. Oh, that would just be funny. Like, I'm not rooting. I'm sounding like a real West Virginia hater, and right now on their team I kind of am. Last year I went to Morgantown and had one of the most fun game days I've ever had. The people out there are wonderful. So you know what? I'm being a little unfair to them the way they treated me, but I don't know if they keep Neil Brown past this.
What about the way they treated me, Brett? What about that? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You can handle that. It's this team's going to be a bowl team, and I'm going to fade them. That's going to be a lot of fun. But for this game specifically, I'm not betting TCU at this number. 12, it's really far away from a key number. Late week, I'll probably be on TCU in some form because they're at home, and I think they're better than the market's projecting them. And, I wish I would have gotten on that 9. That would have been a lot of fun. First time since Penn State that West Virginia has had to worry about a team that can actually score points. That's my biggest worry here. I have heavy doubts that they can match the pace in the scoring, especially with being one-dimensional and not being able to, especially with Mark Eols in there. They're not going to be able to pass the ball much at all. I'm going to be honest, this feels like a sound beating to me. Like a 37-14 or, a game that's not particularly close. Maybe not total blowout, but when you look at it, it's like, yeah, definitely got beat pretty soundly. Our final FBS game of the day before we do our traditional FCS game. We have number 7, Washington, an 18-point road favorite at Arizona. This game has an over-under of 67.5 points, and it kicks off at 10 p.m. Eastern, but you're not watching it because it's on the Pac-12 network, unless you have the Pac-12 network. Good for you, but I don't, so I won't be watching this game at all. I'll have to find YouTube highlights or something. I think it's time, Kelly, that we start having a conversation about Washington. From what I've seen, just alone in this season, Washington might be the most dominant team in the country. Relative to who they've played, relative to what they have on offense. Now, defense need a little bit of more oomph from there. But they've been more dominant against their schedule than I think any team in the country.
I put Oklahoma up there too, but I've listened to the conversation and the case for Washington number 1.
You could still get Washington at 20-1 for the national championship. I'm going to be honest. Their resume can get them there. I don't know about you, Kelly, but my numbers favor Washington right now in every single game, even on the road at Oregon and USC.
USC, I have them as a 1-point dog.
Okay, fair.
But that's a pick 'em.
Yeah, but if you're looking to buy, now's the time. because they play
Yes,
Oregon
sir.
their next game, and that's going to dramatically change the number in one way or another. Either they win
Yep.
that and the train's left the station, or they lose that and they may be out of the race at that point. But from what I'm seeing from Washington, it's like seriously, serious conversation time about this team being an absolute, I think Tom Fornelli keeps calling him a wagon, so I'm going to call him a wagon. Jalen McMillan, one of their top receivers, missed last week with an injury. The team was just being cautious. There's no threat to long-term injury, so if they need him, he'll be back in for this game. To be honest, I don't know how much they are. They still have Rome Odunze, and how about this name? Jalen Polk. I know the name. He's a breakout. He leads their primary wide receivers in yards per route run. He has a 17.7 ADOT, 4 touchdowns already, plus 5 missed tackles with the ball in his hands. This guy's electric. In terms of productivity, don't hear what I'm not saying. Twitter might have fun with this, but in terms of productivity, I would say that Washington's wide receiver core right now may be the best in the country. This trio reminds me of Ohio State's trio with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and JSN. Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan are high draft picks, high NFL draft picks. I don't know about maybe first round, the first couple of rounds, absolutely. And yet you have Jalen Polk here out producing these guys, and he kind of reminds me of that JSN role. No hyperbole there. I'm serious about this one. Arizona simply does not have the defensive backs to contend here. So can they get after the quarterback? So far, only 3.5% of pressures have turned into actual sacks on Michael Penix Jr. because he's a wizard. But Arizona has been really good team-wide in pass rush. The front seven has almost across the board a 10% win rate on pass rushes, and their 10.5% sack rate is 10th best in the country. A lot of 10s there, but you're talking about over 10% sack rate's pretty good. I would call this defense pesky, but they do give up the occasional long play, which Washington can and will take advantage of.
The pesky Huskies. I like that. I have Washington minus 19.5. It's a 91% win expectancy. The Huskies have been legitimately awesome this year, Brett. Their power rating is up 8.8 points from the preseason. That's second most in the nation behind only Oklahoma. Their relative scoring margin is second best, almost 17 points per game better than the average top 25 team would be expected against their schedule. That's second best in the country behind only Oklahoma. I had the offense number 7 in the preseason, and I felt really good about that. But Michael Penix and company have blown that out of the water. They're now the number 2 offense nationally behind only USC. You said you had a lot of 10s. I have a lot of 2s, apparently, behind only USC. And while the offense has been impressive, it's the defense, you said the pesky defense, that has surprised me even more.
Arizona's defense is the one with the pesky defense. They're the one with 10% sack rate. Washington's defense can be pesky.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. I got too excited about making the pesky Husky that I missed who you were even talking about. This defense, though, for Washington, I have them number 23 now. They were number 50 in the preseason. They have been much better than I expected. Washington is number 7 in my most deserving rankings. They have been awesome, like I said, and I fully expect them to be a big contender in the Pac-12 championship game. They've moved now up to the second best chance to make it. It's the first time they've cracked the top 2 all year for me. It's coming into this week. They've supplanted USC, actually. Oregon and Washington are now the top 2 in those percent chances. At 3-1, Arizona is an overtime loss in Starkville away from being undefeated. The Wildcats currently have a power rating of 0.0, Brett. That means this team is literally the definition of FBS average. It's not every day I get to talk about the team that has a 0.0 rating. We don't have that every week. So the fact that we have one this week and they're in the podcast conversation, I love that. Had to make that note. The offense is top 40, but it's the defense that's really impressed me relative to expectations. I had very low expectations for this defense coming into the year. Number 119 nationally in the preseason. They are now number 74 currently. They've just been rising every single week. They rose, 12 spots. I know it was a Stanford. It was on the road. They gave up 20 points, but still, relative to expectation, and as we phase out preseason expectations and bring in in-season data, Arizona's been doing very well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. For as nice of a season as Arizona has put together to this point, the Wildcats' chances to go bowling have actually fallen from 40% in the preseason to 38% currently. It's not because Arizona is that much worse than I projected. They're actually slightly better. It's because the rest of the Pac-12, which I thought was going to be really good, has actually been that much better than I expected. They haven't just been really good. They've been great. This conference has the best quarterbacks. They have the best offenses. It's truly a shame that it's being destroyed after this year. But my goodness, the Pac-12 and these teams are doing everything they can to go out with a bang. The game at Arizona State to end the season is currently the only remaining game in which my numbers favor Arizona. Bottom line, I have Washington minus 19.5. It's a 9% chance that Arizona moves to 2-0 in conference play. I mentioned it for the conference championship race. Washington's currently 57%. If they win this as they're expected to, it jumps to 59. If they lose it, they drop down to a 32% chance, and USC would jump back above them. It's very tight at the top right now. For Arizona, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but you are very much on the outside looking in here. Less than a 1% chance currently. If you lose, it remains that way. If you win, it jumps to a 1% chance to make it to Las Vegas. Arizona shouldn't be worried about making it to Las Vegas. They should be worried about trying to make it to a bowl game. Again, 38% chance that can happen. They're halfway there. They got to figure it out now in conference play. Where are they going to find those wins? Arizona State's one. Maybe Colorado is one. I know people don't want to hear that, but from a power rating standpoint, and then you got to find one more. And I'm just not sure where that is, but Arizona's been better than expected. Maybe they can do it.
Well, Kelly, let's talk about this stretch that Arizona has to play right now. Washington.
Do we have to? Because it's not good.
Oh, we have to. We have to. At USC, at Wazoo. Then they get a bye week, which is much needed after 3 ranked opponents in a row. Then they host Oregon State, host UCLA, travel to Colorado, which is going to be tough because those stands are still going to be packed no matter what that record is. They host Utah, and then they play at their arch rivals, Arizona State. Dude, I don't know if there's one win left on this schedule for that. Arizona State's a mess. Okay, there's one win. But, this is one of the most brutal stretches in the country, hands period. It's crazy.
Tough. It's tough. You've started conference play already. They're 1-0, of course. It was Stanford. I mean, if you're talking about which team do you want to play in the Pac-12, Stanford's probably at the top of your list there. So Arizona State may be a close second. Yeah, man. That's why I say let's focus on trying to make a bowl here, because that in and of itself right now would be a pretty good accomplishment given the difficulty of the schedule.
Yeah, and I'm doing a quick search while we're doing this here. Jane DeLaura, I forgot to mention this off the top. He's hurt. Yeah, not sure if he's gonna be back or not. He's questionable for this Saturday. If he doesn't go,
it won't.
Boy.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters either way, Brett. If we're being honest,
it may not. But for the rest of the schedule, it does.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, go. Yeah, I'm with you.
All these things said, as much praise as I put on Washington, this would also be objectively a very funny spot for Washington to drop a stupid game in Tucson after dark, because that is a weird place to play, and it's not like we don't have a history to be able to point back and look at. Washington still doesn't have a pass rush. They're only 3%. There's a 3% sack rate. That's the 12th worst nationally. They're allowing the 13th highest rushing success rate as well. So there's ways that Arizona can move this ball against them, even if the secondary for Washington is pretty good. To be honest, I don't know if I can lay this big a number. Plus, the market's been all over Arizona. Moved off of minus 20.5 now. What did I say? Minus 17, minus 18. Yeah, so I don't know if I can go with Washington on this one, but they could also just absolutely blow them out by 35 points. Either way. To finish this up with our FCS game, Kelly, we'll be quick because we're running a little long today. I chose Idaho State at number 18, Montana. This game kicks off at 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. We got a gritty game inbound, man. It's going to be low 50s and raining. That's what I'm talking about. We're talking about FCS Big Sky football. Something, though, is fundamentally broken with Idaho State. Last week was the first time that they have allowed fewer than 30 points on the season, and it was against Northern Colorado, who sits 116th in my FCS ratings. They still gave up 21 points to them. Assuming that they can themselves get on the board, that would be an automatic hit to the over. I don't care what number it's at almost. Montana, though, they've been a little bit disappointing. They're a perennial top 10 program, but they lost to Northern Arizona last week, who's ranked 70th in my FCS ratings. The Grizzlies really want to be multiple running the football. Like, literally everybody's getting a carry. If you sign up before the game, they may let you have a carry. They currently are on a 5-back rotation, but they're not getting it going on the ground, though, and the quarterback isn't dynamic enough to offset that. Utah State rushed for 380 yards, though, on Idaho State, so I bet Montana can use this week to get it going. I would probably take any number on Montana this week. It's going to be a big number probably, but I'd probably still lay it. Anything under 4 touchdowns I think is a play for me on the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I've got Montana power rated number 10. I have Idaho State power rated number 106. It's minus 33 for me. This is my projected line with the FCS model in favor of Montana this week. So I agree. If you're less than 4 touchdowns, there's some significant value there as you cross that 4 touchdown mark and 31.
Yeah, keep in mind, Idaho State may have the single worst defensive unit in the entirety of Division I, FBS or FCS. But that's a show. That is a packed show. An absolutely packed show for what I think is still a really good slate. Hop on over to our Discord server where you can connect with over 4,000 sports betting fans and get live updates in our college football channel. There you can join a sharp and very, very active community. I know it was blowing up today with the Connor Wegman news. Don't forget to subscribe to Aligned YouTube for weekly college football odds and betting videos all season long, just like this one. And subscribe to us on your podcasting app of choice, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you're using these days. Kelly, before we close up shop, please let everybody listening know where they can find your work.
Absolutely. You can find me on X at KFord Ratings. You can find me on the website kfordratings.com. And then I'm also over at thelines.com writing a couple feature articles every single week. New this week will be the first time comparison of the AP poll to the most deserving rankings. So I'll be breaking down what the big differences are there, of course, in addition to the watchability scores as we've done all year.
Well, thank you so much, as always, for watching. I'm Brett Gibbons. That is Kelley Ford, and we'll see you all next time.